Welcome to the Making a Multi-Million-Dollar Med Spa podcast, where we dive into the art and science of building a thriving med spa. I'm your host, Kat Toronto. In this podcast, we're all about empowering medical professionals and entrepreneurs like you with the knowledge, tools, and inspiration needed to elevate your practice to new heights. Whether you're just starting your journey or you're a seasoned expert looking to expand, this is the place where the industry's brightest minds come together to share their secrets to success. So sit back, relax, and get ready to unlock the potential of your med spa with the Making a Multi-Million-Dollar Med Spa podcast. Let's go on this journey together, one success story at a time. We are back with another clinic to watch, and we know this one is going to blow you away. Nominated for their unbelievable branding and service, Pure 111 of Fairview Heights, Illinois is our March 2024 clinic to watch. I talked with President of Pure 111, Amy Kasikas, to get the inside scoop on how they do it. You guys, I was not prepared for the true experience they provide their clients. Their clinic is cohesively designed in their brand colors of black, gold, navy, and white with a modern look and feel, but they don't pump the brakes there. Amy said her vision was to immerse her clients through the five senses, and that is exactly what they do. For sight, clients will see the brand colors consistently throughout the experience, including the team's matching scrubs and tennis shoes. For sound, the experience of modern Bridger-esque instrumentals are cast throughout the clinic. For smell, Pure 111's signature scent is pumped in through the clinic via HVAC and is said to lightly linger on the products and bags even after leaving the clinic. For feel, everything the client touches has a heavy, luxurious feel to it, even down to the printables and bags. And finally, for taste, clients are given mints as they leave to reinforce the refreshed experience of Pure 111. I mean, they really have thought of everything. One thing that also adds to this amazing experience, the team. No med spa brand is complete without a skilled, confident team. Pure 111 takes pride in the outstanding team they have created and mentioned that none of their success would be possible without each team member. Amy did share one more tip for anyone looking to take their brand to the next level. Follow the Ritz-Carlton way, and whenever possible, find a way to say yes. A client has to cancel because the garage door won't open, go pick her up. A client orders products online, do a personal drop-off. They do whatever they can do to go the extra mile. To learn more about Pure 111 and their out-of-the-box experience, check out the show notes. There you'll find a link to the full story on Pure 111, a link to their website, and their Instagram page. Congratulations, Pure 111! We are truly honored to know and love you. Keep leading with grace and doing amazing things. All right, you guys, hey, welcome to today's episode. I'm really excited about this topic just because so much in the industry has changed. Technology's come so much further, and now we have access to technology that's safe and effective for our clients with melanin-rich skin. So we're going to talk today about technologies and treatments that are safe and effective for our Fitzpatrick 4s, 5s, and 6s. And so just to start, I want to talk about how technology works, really go back to the fundamentals, and then we're going to talk about lasers. We're going to talk about the Fitzpatrick scale. We're going to talk about possible contraindications. And then we're going to dive into some of my favorite treatments for my Fitzpatrick 4, 5, and 6s. And so let's talk about how lasers work. This concept of selective photothermolysis that really explains the light interaction between between the laser and tissue. And so selective meaning that technology, these wavelengths are selective. They go after specific targets, specific chromophores in the skin. It may be water, it may be melanin, it may be oxyhemoglobin, it may be more than one. And so looking at the technology you have, it's really important to look at what are the wavelengths that technology uses, and then what chromophore does that wavelength go after? What is the target? And so photothermolysis, photo means light, thermo, heat, lysis, destruction. And so when that light, that energy gets absorbed by the chromophore, so let's say the light gets absorbed by melanin in a pigmented lesion, once the absorption happens, it creates heat. and that heat is what makes a change. And of course, we want to do that while we still protect the epidermis or the skin around that target. So water, if the target is water, is going to be very different than if the target is melanin or oxyhemoglobin. But that same concept, the concept of selective photothermolysis, really helps us to understand what technology is going to be safe for our Fitzpatrick 4s, 5s, and 6s. So let's move on to the Fitzpatrick scale and talk a little bit about that. I think this is something that you're all using, you're all familiar with. When I first started in this industry over 20 years ago, I would have clients fill out a form and it would say, what's your eye color, your hair color, have you been in the sun recently? How does your skin respond to the sun? And it was this form and they would fill out and put a number to it. And at the end, they would add up their number and it would just, tell me Fitzpatrick 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. And now I've really simplified that to just a couple things. Number one, I look at their eye color. So if they have blue-green eyes, typically they're a Fitzpatrick 1, 2. If they have light brown eyes, typically they're a Fitzpatrick 3, 4. If they have dark brown eyes, typically they're a Fitzpatrick 5 or 6. And so it's one place to start, but you want to remember that's the only thing you're looking at. So for example, if you have a blue-eyed client and the next point or the next step of this is I will ask them, hey, when you're out in the sun, when you were a teenager, how would your skin respond? And I don't say like now because, most of our clients will tell us they don't really go in the sun. But, so when you were a teenager trying to get a tan, how quickly would your skin burn? And, my Fitzpatrick ones will say, I always burn, Kat. I never tan. My Fitzpatrick 2s will say, back then I would get a burn within 30 minutes to an hour, but, I could get a little color if I really worked on it through the summer. So Fitz 1s burn, never tan. Fitz 2s, they may burn within the first 30 minutes to an hour, and they really have to work to keep that tan. Fitzpatrick 3s will say something like, I don't know. I probably burn in the beginning of the summer, but then I can just kind of tan. And then my Fitzpatrick 4s will say, I don't burn. And our Fitzpatrick 5s and 6 also don't burn. So your number one, eye color. Number two, you really want to get the response to that question, and you want it to be that honest response. And so I found that, asking them about when they were a teenager, how their skin responded is a much more honest answer than what we get now as adults, especially if they think you're going to tell them, no, they can't have that laser treatment if they've been in the sun. So I look at their eye color and then I ask them that question. And then I will also look at, for example, if I'm doing a BBL, IPL type of treatment, a photofacial treatment, I'm also going to look at how much melanin or how much color do I see on the surface in the area I'm treating that day. So for example, if they have blue eyes and they tell me they burn, 30 minutes to an hour, and they can get some color, but I look at their skin and it looks like they have a tan on the area I'm treating. One, I'm going to make sure that that's not a recent tan. If it is, I'm going to turn them away and have them come back in 3 to 4 weeks. But let's say it's just been 10 to 20 years of going to Florida every winter, and it's this buildup of color over years. And in the past month, they really haven't been in the sun. Just because they have blue-green eyes does not mean I'm going to treat them as a Fitzpatrick 2 on their chest. I'm going to look at the colors that I see on the day of treatment. And if I see skin that looks tan, I'm going to treat it as a tan. I'm going to treat it as a Fitzpatrick 3 or maybe even a Fitzpatrick 4. So let's say they come in and the skin on their face does look like a typical Fitzpatrick 2. Their neck looks like a 3, a little bit more color. A Fitzpatrick 4 on their chest, maybe they look like they have a tan. And so I'm going to do different settings based on what I see that day, as long as they haven't had recent sun exposure. So that's really important when you're treating your Fitzpatrick 1 through 3s. I know we're talking primarily about 4s, 5s, and 6s today, but it's important that I share that because that made the biggest difference in my practice with BBL specifically, in that it gives me a safer place to start, and then I'll adjust the settings as I go based on how their skin responds. That way you can avoid the striping, the blisters, and things like that when you're working with photofacial devices like BBL Broadband Light by Cyton or IPL by other companies. So then we're going to look at our Fitzpatrick 4s, 5s, and 6s. And so Fitzpatrick 4 would typically be someone maybe that is Hispanic. Fitzpatrick V is typically our Asian clients. Fitzpatrick VI is typically our African American clients. But when in doubt, you're going to choose, again, if I have an Asian client that comes in, and they have, if I look at my Asian clients, I lived in Hong Kong in my early 20s. And I always tell this story because when I got there, one of the most surprising things to me was, they would bring out umbrellas more often when it was sunny than when it was raining. And, here I was, in my early 20s, and I was still working on my tan, back then, something that never really quite came to fruition. But, and so I was like, oh, wow, like, why are they using umbrellas when it's sunny? And it just turns out that their culture, they really protect their skin. And so in doing so, the melanin is left down deep and not on the surface. And so we don't see as much of that melanin, even though they have melanin-rich skin, we don't see it on the surface. It's down in the dermis. And so, when you look at your Asian clients that are from the Philippines or from different parts of the world, that maybe they live on an island, and so their skin is exposed to the sun more often and for more years, you may see more of that melanin on the surface. And so in that case, you might also start them as a Fitzpatrick 5 or 6 if you thought they were a 4 or 5. So just going up to that higher level, just like I do from a 3 or a Fitzpatrick 2, I start them as a 3. You may also start a Fitzpatrick 4 as a Fitzpatrick 5, and that'll give you a safer place to start. With saying that, though, I personally don't use devices like BBL on my Fitzpatrick 6 clients. I have just found that there are other technologies that are safer and more consistent. I know that there are many providers out there that do that, but personally for me, I have just found that there are different ways that I can approach my Fitzpatrick 5s and 6s and not necessarily need to jump to something like an IPL or BBL. Do you know an outstanding med spa, doctor, manager, provider, or groundbreaking treatment that is reshaping the industry? Nominate them for Mint's Clinics to Watch. We are so excited to launch this initiative to recognize the true leaders in our industry. Our aim is to spotlight those leading the way to excellence, providing valuable insights for others to pave their path to success. Check out our website for past winners of the Clinics to Watch. You can also nominate someone at the link in our show notes. Share your nominations and be part of celebrating the industry leaders. Let's inspire and build success together. So what are some other possible complications with our Fitzpatrick 4s, 5s, and 6s? I think one of the main ones I've seen over the years is post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation. And there's a couple of different ways that I can gauge whether or not they're going to be prone to this. One, I'll ask them, when you get cut or scratched over the years, does it leave any color behind? Do you have any scars? Because typically they'll call it a scar. And then they'll kind of look around and show me and say, oh yeah, look at this cat. I definitely, it looks darker right here. This is where I, got scraped by a tree branch or something going for a run. And so that will tell me that in that healing process, the skin is is producing more melanin in that area. And so no matter the type of injury that they have, whether it's a laser or a bump or a cut or something like that, they may be prone to that pigmentation in that area. And so it's going to help me to set up for my treatment so that I can prevent that as much as possible as well. Another tip I got from Dr. Joel Cohen recently is to look at the palms of their hands. And if you see pigment within the creases on their palms, that might also be an indicator that they're prone to PIH, post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation. So, and so when you have a client that is prone to PIH, some of the things that I think about is really just cooling their skin as much as possible during the treatment and post-treatment. So for example, if I'm doing a fractional device like Moxie or Halo, I will treat a zone and cool with ice cold compress, move to that next zone. So if I've treated the right cheek, immediately post, I cool, treat the left cheek, immediately post, I cool, full face, cool again. So you can cool throughout that treatment. You could also add in a Zimmer while you're doing the treatment, which is that device that blows cold air. So there's a number of different ways that you can cool the skin during the treatment, and then really think about what tools do you have in your clinic that are safe to use immediately post laser to cool the skin. And I'm going to share some of what I do with you as well here in just a minute. So what are the technologies that I love? I mentioned I don't love photofacial devices, especially for my 5s and 6s. It's not that I don't ever use them, but I don't think that they're my first go-to types of treatment, especially for my 6s. 5s, I think, definitely more doable. And so I think that if you're new to aesthetics, my tip for you would be to get really good at treating your Fitzpatrick 1 through 3s first. And on the face first, because even with our Fitzpatrick 1 through 3s, the complications that we typically start to see with striping and blisters tend to happen on the body. And so if you start on the face, you can avoid some of those by really learning the technology and how you adjust settings from a 1 to a 2 and a 2 to a 3. And then start to work on the body. And then when you're comfortable there, move to your Fitzpatrick 4s, get really comfortable on the face before you move to the body, and then your Fitzpatrick 5s and so forth. So for our clinic, we're really fortunate because we have a team that has, some of our team members have been with us for over 20 years. And so for our newer team members, I will just say, hey, I want you to, if you get booked with a consult with one of our clients that have melanin-rich skin, let's go ahead and move that consult to one of our other providers that has more expertise until you build that confidence with BBL, until you build that confidence with Moxie and Halo and chemical pills and some of these other things. And so, I guess I would say when in doubt, don't do it. When in doubt, if you don't have the training, the technology, the skills to jump into treating your Fitzpatrick 4s, 5s, and 6s, I would say, just tell them, be honest, and find a great referral source in your community that you can send them to, which is what we also do in certain circumstances as well, even though we have a very talented team and lots of technology to choose from. So what are some of my safest or my go-to favorites when I look at treatments for clients with melanin-rich skin? Number one is going to be Moxie. And Moxie is a thulium device. So it's a fractionated laser and uses a wavelength that targets water. And in fact, Moxie is a diode that you can kind of think of it as tuning into that 1927 wavelength. But in doing so, that energy gets absorbed by water in the skin, creates a thermal injury or wound, and the body goes and heals it. And so instead of it targeting melanin, which if your client does have melanin-rich skin and you're trying to improve their skin, it's, how much of that energy gets absorbed is a little bit harder to control. And so one of the things I like to think about is, and I lived in Arizona for 15 years. It's just, I love the sunshine, but in the summer it gets really, really hot. And so if I were to walk outside barefoot, I could walk barefoot on the concrete sidewalk. It's light in color. It doesn't absorb the sunlight, and so it doesn't heat up. But if I were to step foot on that black asphalt street, it's so dark that that light gets absorbed, gets really hot, and makes it hard to walk on barefoot. And so the more color that we have in the skin, the more melanin we have in the skin. We go back to selective photothermolysis with technologies that get absorbed by melanin. You're going to have a scenario like that dark asphalt street is going to absorb all of that light and heat up that full area so much that that's when we see complications with the striping and the burns and blisters. And so why not choose a technology that doesn't get absorbed by melanin? It doesn't matter if it's a dark asphalt street or a light concrete sidewalk, because it doesn't get absorbed by melanin or color at all. It only gets absorbed by water. And so the safest technologies that you can use will be those technologies where that wavelength of light, that energy gets absorbed by water in the skin, and then you can adjust how much and how long that energy is delivered so you can minimize that wound profile and avoid the complications that we see even when we're using those water targeting technologies as well. So going back to Moxie, but again, if you have another thulium device, you could create a similar treatment in most cases, not all cases. It depends on the energy and how much energy you can deliver over what period of time. So I'm going to stick to Moxie. It's what I know, but it is a 1927 wavelength and it is fractional. And so let's talk about full field versus fractional treatments just real quick. So full field is going to treat the entire surface of the skin to a specific depth, and you may be able to set that depth on your device or doing multiple passes, but I kind of think about it like a birthday cake. You've got 5 layers of birthday cake, and a full filled treatment would be able to shave off or remove that entire layer of icing on that birthday cake, or that entire first layer of cake. So if you think about the epidermis and dermis as layers, and a full filled treatment might remove the entire dead skin cell layer. That's it, the stratum corneum with that first pass, or it might be able to remove the entire epidermis with a pass, or go even deeper into the dermis. Need an onboarding program for your medical aesthetic clinic? The Mint Aesthetics online e-courses are the perfect resource for your entire team. Our all-inclusive annual rate grants your team unlimited access to over 30 courses, more than 170 hours of educational and hands-on video, and well over 600 downloadable resources. The best part? We're constantly adding fresh, valuable content. Check out the Mint e-courses for your team today. Visit us online at mintaesthetics.com or give us a call at 913-338-2553. Get started on your journey to excellence today. Hi all, I hope you're enjoying the podcast. We are always looking for feedback to make it better, so be sure to give us your feedback at the link in the show notes. If you're loving the podcast, we would really appreciate it if you would share it with a friend, rate us 5 stars, and write a review. This really helps other clinics and industry professionals find our podcast. Thanks. Now let's get back to the episode. And so fractional devices came out. They took this collimated laser light, and they put it through a screen door to create fractions or create columns to treat fractions of the skin. Thus, we call it a fractional laser. And so it's more like taking birthday candles and putting them into the cake. And so if I were to put 5 candles into a regular size cake, and I take those 5 candles out, it's going to leave most of the surface of the cake intact. And so if I do low density treatments, it's really only going to treat, a very small fraction of the skin. Whereas if I go to 10 candles, I'm going to be able to treat more. If I go to 100 candles in that same size of cake, I might take those candles out and the whole surface of the cake comes with me. And so with something like Moxie, as you increase your density, you're putting in more of those columns, you're creating more columns of thermal injury or zones of injury. And so, they start to butt up against each other and eventually run over each other. And so what generally gets you in trouble with fractionated treatments is too high a density, too many candles in the cake, and then you take the whole surface when the skin peels. And so when we're treating our clients with melanin-rich skin, we want to be careful not to put in too many candles, because that heat builds and then we peel off too much at once, or maybe especially if they're prone to PIH, then we get PIH post-treatment. So Moxie is really easy to control. We've got lighter settings, meaning lower power settings, lower densities that we can choose from. And so we're able to deliver these safe and yet still very effective results. I will say that the way that I love to approach my Fitzpatrick 4s, 5s, and 6s is not ever by saying, really my 1 through 3s also, but it's not ever by saying like, here's a treatment, you're going to get amazing results in this one treatment. No, this is a plan that we put together, an approach that we put together to look at how can we improve your skin and get you to the results that you're hoping for over a series of visits and months, so that we can do it safely and still get amazing results. I mean, look at the technology and what we can do with it now versus 10 to 15 years ago. It's truly amazing. And so Moxie, I absolutely love that for my Fitzpatrick 4s, 5s, and 6s. Halo is another great way to treat your higher Fitzpatrick clients, because again, it is a fractional treatment that we can deliver lower densities, put in a smaller number of candles to get a change to happen in the skin and still not, cause any complications with that technology. And Nd:YAG, a 1064 nanometer wavelength, is going to be our go-to when we're doing hair removal for Fitzpatrick's. Well, really can use it Fitzpatrick 1 through 6, but it's ideal for Fitzpatrick 4s, 5s, and 6s, because the primary chromophore, the primary target that energy gets absorbed by is oxyhemoglobin. So it's not looking for the melanin in the hair follicle that are, alexandrite lasers, our photofacial devices that can do hair removal like BBL are getting absorbed by melanin in the bulb and the bulge of the hair follicle, whereas that ND-YAG is getting absorbed by that blood supply primarily, a little bit, tiny bit by melanin down deep, but primarily by blood or that red, the oxyhemoglobin. And so it kind of shuts off that blood supply, so it kills the hair follicle that way. So again, another device that you can use on your clients that have melanin-rich skin. And that device can also be used for overall skin rejuvenation. I've used a device like that for years, lower powered, like lower energies, and using it kind of overall, kind of generating heat in the skin. I don't know if you're watching this on video or not, but here I am trying to do the treatment as I talk to you, and it's been used to reduce redness in all skin types, promote collagen, elastin production, because that energy is being absorbed deeply, and it's increasing the temperature of the skin to 39, 43 degrees on the surface. And so, we use a lot of technology that way to produce collagen, elastin, things like Skin Tight, Indiva, Exilis, all these non-invasive skin tightening devices have been used for years. But an ND-YAG can be safely used on all skin types to do that same type of treatment. Radio frequency devices can also be used on all skin types. And you still want to be careful, especially when it comes to microneedling, because you don't want to leave too much of that heat in the epidermis with your Fitz IVs, Vs, and Sixes. You can hyper or hypopigment the skin with those treatments. So be cautious there. Again, I think my go-to would still be Moxie Halo, a device that gets absorbed by water, and you can really control the depth and the density of those devices to minimize the chance of those types of complications. So, going back to what types of treatments you need to look at your menu of services, really understand the technology you have. What is the chromophore that it gets absorbed by? And one of my first questions I ask the manufacturers, how am I going to get in trouble with this? Who should I not treat? And I really want, it's hard because I think a lot of times they want to tell you, oh, you can treat the world with it. But I don't want to know the world. I want to know, exactly who I cannot treat, because I've found that over the years, typically there's always someone, either a type of skin, of course, a condition. We're treating primarily healthy clients, right? But, I want to know where the complications come from, because I have a lot of tools. I don't need a hammer to build my building. I want to buy the technology that's right for the conditions and the clients. And so instead of having one device and trying to make it do everything, I have multiple devices to choose from. And I understand if you're a new clinic, you're not going to have the budget to do that right away. And so choose smart, really do your research in technology to find out, okay, this is my patient demographic. These are the results that I'm looking to get. I don't need to start with 10 different systems. I'm going to start with one, build my clientele there, and build my business so that then I can afford to get that second, third, fourth, fifth device. And eventually you'll be 20 years down the road and you'll have a lot more to choose from. But in the beginning, it's important to look at what really is your passion, what is your focus, and make sure that you do your research and talk to other clinics, not just the clinic that the manufacturer or the rep gave you to call, but other clinics. You can just go to the website, go to Cyton, look for Moxie providers in your, out there, and it maybe not in your area, but in surrounding states, and just give them a random call. I mean, I think that always is, it's one of the ways that we approach it, and just say, hey, I'm an owner, I'm looking to buy this technology. I really just need some great feedback. Do you have 5 minutes? I just have a couple questions for you. And I would say honestly, I've never been turned down when I've done that. So I think it's a great way to get some real information about the technology and say, these are my clients. This is who I want to treat. This is the result that I'm looking to get. What does that really look like? Can I do that? What complications can I expect? How many treatments will it really take me to get those results? And I think you'll get some honest answers. At least I have in the past as well. So hopefully that helps you as well. So going back to one other thing I'd mentioned earlier, some ways to cool the skin post-treatment, no matter the technology that you're using. I will say I've used the Zimmer for years to prevent complications. And so that's a device that's well worth the spend. Again, it's just a device that blows cold air. It takes the sting out of the treatment for your client. It creates kind of a distraction, this cold blowing air on them. So again, it helps their discomfort during the treatment, and it just provides another level of safety depending on the technology that you're using. Ice cold soaks, of course. I'll use hypochlorous acid, spray the ice, spray the water to make sure that I can apply it to the skin immediately post-treatment. So that's a little tip. And then one of the things I've fallen in love with is the Velez mask. I mean, who would have thought? I kind of thought this for a minute in the beginning because I really like to avoid topicals that could cause contact dermatitis post-treatment, but we have now used the Velez mask thousands of times, truly, and our clients absolutely love it. Just yesterday, I did a Halo Bright treatment, a BBL Halo treatment, and she had a little bit of pinpoint bleeding because I had done 640, 100 max just around the perioral area. Really, really red because she has that light skin, light eyes, very vascular client. So super red after the treatment. I put the mask on her. She sat and relaxed. And about 45 minutes later, I went in, took the mask off. It pulled off all of the pinpoint bleeding, completely reduced the redness, I would say, by about 50%. And she truly looked amazing post Halo BBL, which, I had done a high density treatment on her. You'd expect to see a lot more as they walk out the door. And in fact, she had made a new friend in our waiting room. We have this numbing kind of relaxation room for before and after treatment. She'd made a new friend there, and her friend was numbing for the Halo. And I took the mask off, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, I've been so nervous, but you look amazing. I'm so happy that I got to see that." So that mask has been a really great tool that we've added to our clinic in the last year. And I also send one home for her. So if it is one of those treatments like Halo where you're doing 35-40% density, where it's really hot after the treatment and you want to cool them down, that's a great mask for those Fitzpatrick 1 through 3 clients as well. But when we're talking about Fitzpatrick 4, 5s, and 6s, I'm absolutely going to cool their skin down for at least 15 to 30 minutes post. And so that's a really great way to cool the skin immediately post and not have to worry about sterile water and sterile ice and all of those things. So the Velez mask, check it out. We'll add the link in the notes so you can check out where to get that mask. We don't make anything. If you decide to buy it, we have no affiliations with them. If you want to tell them that you heard it about it from us, I'd love that. They might send us a mask or two, but I have no setup, in terms of if you buy, I don't make, there's no kickback there. So just a tip, it's made a big impact on our business and helped our clients. So I definitely want to share those things with all of you. So I hope you really enjoyed this short podcast today. I want to say thank you for always tuning in. Please share this episode if you found it helpful. If you want additional information, all the things that we have to offer, go to mintaesthetics.com, our amazing e-course series, which has all of the client paperwork and lessons that you would need associated with this podcast to learn more about Moxie, Halo, BBL from head to toe. So check out those. If you have additional needs for training, we'd love to help you with that. And then if you want more information about our medical spa, Aesthetic Care, go to greatskinkc.com. We have 2 locations in the Kansas City area, opening up a 3rd here in a couple months. So we're really excited about that. So for more information, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, mintaesthetics.com, or Aesthetic Care KC. So I thank you really for tuning in to today's episode of the Making a Multi-Million-Dollar Med Spa podcast. I'm Kat Toronto, and it has been an absolute joy to be part of your journey. Until next time, let your passion lead the way. See you soon.